Hello everyone, it's Mindy and I'm back with another Copic tutorial to share with you today. I've gotten a huge response on this card that I posted a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of you are asking for me to do a video tutorial on how I colored my background using Copic markers. So I'm using this new stamp set from Simon Says Stamp called Winter Scene, and I've stamped my images in Memento Desert Sand ink so I can have that no line look, and I've swapped out a couple of the stamps just to change up the scene a little bit. So instead of using the mountains, I'm using the house, and I swapped out the deer so it just has a different look to it. So let's go ahead and get started. So when I color, I normally will color everything that's the lightest on the image first. So we're going to go ahead and color the snow. So I'm using the C's because it has a cool tone to it rather than using the W's for that warm look. I want a little bit of a blue tinge to it. So I'm going to be using C0, C4, C2, and C00. I'm going to start with my C2, and I'm just going to add a little bit of color to the shadowed areas. So right at the border here, I want it to stand out. I cut my image so I have a little bit of a white border. As you can see, the stamp, it has its own border on the image. So that way you have that little bit of white that's showing. So I'm going to just outline these edges on both sides. And then right in this dip right here, because this hill is in front of this one back here, all underneath here is going to have a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to come up the edges. And now we're going to take the C0, and I'm just going to do a little bit of flicking to push this color out into the snow just a little bit. So you want to work the color out so that way the C2 is blended. And with each new lighter color that you use, you're going to come out a little bit more. So you see here, I stopped about here with the C2, and now I'm dragging that color out and pulling it through so that way it blends out. And we're going to do the same thing up here. And then I'm going to take my C0 and do the same thing. The C0 is so light that if you do a heavy flick and really brush that nib going up, you'll be able to blend it nicely into the white. So there you won't see any harsh lines. So do the same thing over here. And also up here. So now I'm going to take my C4, and we're just going to add just a little bit of color just to really make it pop. So I'm going to start where we first added that C2, but I'm not going to go out as far. So I'm just going to kind of outline the image just a little bit, and that's it. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. And then also, we want this hill in the back to really look like it's coming out. So we do want to add, you want to lightly trace along that outline. And then we'll come up just slightly, and also just a little bit in that little corner. So now we're going to blend that out. So we're going to get out the C2 again. And again, I'm going to pull that color out just a little bit more, and then do these little baby flicks to soften that C4. So I'm going to do the same thing down here. And again, you want to come out just slightly. And now I'm going to take my C0, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to blend out the rest of that C2. And then once you get each side blended, we want to cover up that memento desert sand color, because we don't want there to be that brown border going across. We want it to really look like snow. So very, very lightly, I'm going to just go over the outline just a few times to kind of camouflage it. So the same thing up here. And then we're going to take our C00 and then once again do that heavy flick so it blends nicely into the white. The trick to coloring white is you just want to shadow it gray. You still want to leave white area so that way it just looks like it's shadowed. It still looks white. Okay, so we will be adding some more details to the snow, but I want to get some other color down. So let's go ahead and pull those colors out. So now we're going to go ahead and color the tree. So you're going to need YG97 and YG95. We're going to start with YG95, and we're only going to be adding a little bit of color underneath each of these layers of the tree. So that way the tops of each of those layers look like it has snow on it. So just directly under this top one, we're just going to outline that little line that's there and just add just a little bit of color underneath. And we're going to do the same thing over here. And with this last tree. And then we're going to take our YG97 and we're just going to go, I went a little thick with the YG95 and now we want to try to go even thinner just by adding just a little bit of a shadow directly underneath. You don't even have to do all of it if you are a little bit heavier handed. You could just add a little flick here and there just to give it that dimension. And it really makes it stand out. All right, so now we're going to go back with some of our C colors so we can give the snow that's on the trees a little bit of a shadow. So let's go ahead and we'll start with the lighter colors. So let's just take the C0 because like I said before, we still want it to look white, so we don't want to really cover up everything. So since we have the moon coming from this angle, from this corner over here, we're just going to shadow the bottom parts over on this side of each of the trees, just to give it a little bit of a shadow. And we'll go up the sides on the tops just a little. Now I'm going to take my C2 and again, very lightly, just in certain areas, I just want to give it a little bit more of a shadow. So I'm just going to focus on tracing the outline of our stamped image. So just by adding just a tiny bit of color will really make it stand out and give it that detail. Now we're going to go ahead and do the snow on the roof. So let's get out the same color. So we're going to take the C2 and I'm just going to go right on the inside of the roof that over here and then all along this side and the bottom, and then it's going to get a little thinner so it stays lighter towards the top. So then we'll take the C0 and we're going to blend this out. And then I'm gonna outline the part that's the memento, the outline of the stamp, so that way it doesn't look like it's got a brown roof, so that way it looks like it's snow. And we're gonna take the C00 and do that heavy flick so it blends nicely into the white cardstock. And then I'm gonna take the C4, and again, we're just gonna really focus on this bottom part over here and underneath the roof, so that way it still has that same, just like how we did over here, that same with the light source. So I'm just gonna go underneath the roof. And then on the inside over here. And then we'll take our C2 again to soften that line. So do little baby flicks. And then again with the C0. All right, so our roof is done. We have a little bit of a patch of snow right above the door, so let's go ahead and we'll start with the C4. Just because it's such a small area, I don't want to go back over and add a second layer, because then you're going to end up covering up the entire snow above the door. So just a little line, and then we're going to take the C2, and I'm just going to very lightly go across, and then the C0. And then with the C0, I'm going to outline the outline of the snow. So that's it that we're gonna add right there, because like I said before, I wanna leave that white area. So let's go ahead and take our E33, and we're going to color in those tree trunks. So I'm just gonna fully color in using my E33. And then I'm going to take my C4 and I'm going to add a shadow on one side and a little bit underneath, just to give it a little bit more dimension. Okay, so now for the house, I'm going to color it C10, C7, and C4. So it's going to be gray. So I'm going to start with my C10, and directly underneath the roof, I'm going to just make a little line, and then I'm going to come down each of those lines that are on the image, just a little. So the same thing, we want a little bit of a shadow going underneath the roof up here, because the roof would be casting a shadow onto the house. And now I'm going to take my C7 and pull the color down just a little bit more. Make sure you go over that snow so that way you still see it. And then we're going to take our C4 and we're just going to fill the rest of the house in. I'm going to go back with my C7 just to blend it out just a little bit more, because you can see kind of where I've stopped because I'm skipping in between colors. And now I'm going to go back with my C4 just to pull that color through a little bit more, giving it another layer so it softens up all that harsh line that we made. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and color the door. So I wanted the door to be red, so I'm going to use R35, and then we're going to tone it down a little bit with E35. So I'm just going to fill in the entire door. And then I'm going to take my E35 and I'm just going to go along the one side and a little bit underneath. And then I'm going to take my R35 again just to go back over it, since we don't really want it to look brown. We still want it to look red, but that will go ahead and blend it out so it's not so bold and bright. So now I'm going to take my C7 and we're just going to add a little bit more of a shadow. So I'm just going to outline the door over here on this side and up the arch. So that way it looks like it has a little bit more of dimension. It looks like a thick door. And I'm also going to just make a little dot for the doorknob. So now I'm going to take my E35 and I'm just going to fill in the chimney. And then I'm going to take my C7 again and just give a little bit of a shadow on this back part of the chimney. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and color the deer. So you're going to want to get out the E33, E31, and E35. So since it's such a small area and I don't want to really saturate the paper, I'm not going to go back over and do two coats of ink like how I would normally do. So I'm going to work in reverse since I color from dark to light. So I'm going to color the entire deer in with my E31. Now I'm going to take my E33 and go underneath the belly here and on the inner parts of his legs to create a little bit of a shadow. And then I'm going to go in the center parts just to kind of make the antlers stand out a little bit more. So now we're going to blend that out with the E31. Just give it a couple of flicks into the color that we already have laid down. And then with the E35, I'm just going to focus on outlining the image that's there, so that way I'm just deepening those shadows. So right on the inner legs and then underneath of him, and also on the legs in the front. And we'll go a little bit on his neck and in his antlers. So if you feel like you've gone a little heavy or you want to blend it out a little bit more, take your E31 again just to kind of soften up that line. It's a very small image to color. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do the sky. The sky is super fun because I love the way the moon and the stars all have that lighter blue going around it. It really gives it that look that they are glowing. So we're going to take the Y02 and the Y000, so 000. You're going to start with your Y02. And I'm going to color the inside, still leaving that white border. So I'm not completely filling in the stars. I'm just kind of filling in the centers. And the same thing with the moon. Then I'm going to take the Y000 and now I'm going to finish filling in the star. So that way it gets lighter on the edge and it really gives it that glowing effect. All right, so now for the sky. Okay, so for the sky, we're going to be using B99, B97, B95, B93, B91, and also BG09, BG07, and BG05. So we're gonna start with B97, and I'm just going to outline the bottom part of the sky. So all around the house, and coming up the side. The clouds shifted and it got dark in here. Then we're gonna do this side of the house and around the tree. So it's always better just to outline and give yourself that thick border around what you don't want to color. So that way, now I can just carefully go around and fill in the part that I need colored. Still working our way over, so I'm going to come over here. Outline this tree. And then in between the two trees, just fill that in. And also over here, come up the tree, but we don't want to go all the way up that side because we want that side to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to fill in this whole area. And now we're going to get out the B95. So I'm going to continue bringing up the color. Now as the sky gets lighter, that's when we want to add some of that BG09. So you don't have to worry about totally filling all of this part in, since we're going back and adding layers of different colors to create a different color. So I'm going to move on down using my B93. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and start with the BG09. So we're gonna go back and darken up all down with from the B97. So we want to add more of that color. It's gonna darken it and give it more of a blue-green look. Okay, now I'm going to take my B99 and I want to darken this just a little bit more. So I'm just going to kind of go right at the edge where it's the darkest, or we want it to be the darkest, and then I'm just going to flick going up. So just right at the base of all of our images. in between those trees. Okay, so now I'm going to take my B97 again, and we're just going to bring that up a little bit higher just to add a little bit more of the darker blue. And now let's go ahead and take our BG07 and go directly over that BG09, pulling that color out. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and take the the B95 again, and we're going to add a little bit more of the blue just to soften up this line. We're going to go in between the two colors, so that way we have a different shade of blue. Okay. So now let's take the B93 and you want to go and start filling in the rest of the area that is still white, but you want to leave a white border going all the way around. You don't want to go right up to the stars just yet. So just start filling in. I'll just outline this line up here. Okay, so now I'm going to take my BG05 and I'm going to flick going into that B93. So we do want to come in between a little bit, but then kind of flick going out so that way it gets a little bit lighter, but it makes it easier to blend that way. So I'm going to trace this outline again. So make little scribbles, just adding that color. Now let's take the B91 and we want to pull some of that BG05 into the white area with the B91 just to soften up all those lines that we just scribbled on there. And once you have that, all the BG05 and BG07, once it's pretty much blended in, then you can go ahead and you're going to want to outline the star. So just go right up next to it and just make those lines going out. And then fill the rest of the area that's white in. So that way you don't take any chance of adding that blue into your star so it still stays yellow. So we're going to do the same thing over here. And then fill the rest in. And the moon. Okay, so now we're going to go back over all those areas with the BG05. And this is really going to give it that glow. So again, I'm going to outline the stars. And then I'm going to flick, blending the rest of that, the darker blue, so you won't be able to see it, but you could still see an underlying layer of that blue, and having that laid down first really dulls out this BG color so it's not so bold and vibrant, and it looks more like a night sky, to me anyways. And now for the moon. Okay, so almost finished. I want to give a little bit more of darker shadow going around here. So we're going to do some more flicking going up into all the lighter colors that we just put on. So let's take the BGO. Let's do the BG09. And let's pull up some of that darker color. I'm gonna go up the side here just a little farther. I'm gonna try to keep it thin. And then just finish kind of flicking going up, bringing up that shadow just a little higher. Alright, so now let's take the BG07 and do the same thing. We're just gonna bring the shadows up a little bit more. I'm gonna take this color and make this border up here just a little darker. And then again with the BG05, and it should blend nicely into the color that we already have laid down. So I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. We're going to go ahead and add some details to the sky with our white gel pen in just a few minutes, but I do want to add a little bit more shadowing in the snow down here. So again, you're going to get out your C4, C2, C0, and C00. And you're also going to be needing your Y000. So we'll do that in a second. First, let's go ahead and take let's start small. I know sometimes it could be a little intimidating to start with a darker color on something that you don't particularly want to mess this up right now. So, or go too much, because you can always add more, you can't take away. So I want the deer to have a shadow underneath of him, so we're just going to add a little bit of a shadow. And then also this side of the house, we want to be a little bit shadowed over here. So you really want that edge right here to be, you don't want to blend that out. You want that harsh line right there, so that way it looks like the moon is casting a shadow onto this side of the house, and it's very, I don't know how to explain it, but it gives it that more of a realistic look, I guess. So the same thing with the trees. We're just going to add a little bit of a shadow coming out and across. So now let's take the C2 and add a little bit of a shadow, a little darker of a shadow underneath the deer. So I'm staying in the center of that area that we just added that C2 to. So you're not going outside of that. The same thing over here, just a little bit of a darker shadow. And also I'm just gonna do a couple of flicks on the side of the house that's going and still staying within that perimeter of the C2. So now let's take our C0, or I'm sorry, that was with our C0, the perimeter of the C0. And we're just gonna soften that up a little bit more. And then we're gonna take our Y000, and we wanna add a little bit of a highlight to with the yellow onto some of the parts of the snow, just so it looks like it's, you know, the sky is shining on the snow, and it's gonna give that moonlit look. So I'm just gonna add a little flick here and there, coming down. We'll go over here a little, maybe a little over here. So it's not much, just a little bit. So we'll take the C00, and we're just gonna kind of do a heavy flick, just to kind of, horrible with my words today. Just to kind of blend it out a little bit so it's not so bold. All right. So what I did with my other image was deepen the shadows a little bit more on the tree. So I'm gonna take my C2, and I'm just gonna kind of shadow all along the side, and I'm using the dotted effect just because you know you'll leave some white areas in between. That way you don't get overboard getting carried away with adding all your little shadows. So it's just a little bit. And I'm actually going to increase those shadows a little bit more with my C4. So again, I'm just gonna add a couple of dots this time. So I'm not adding as many as I did before with the C2, just a little bit, just gives it a little bit more. All right. So now we are ready to do the sky with our white gel pen. Okay, so you're gonna take your white gel pen, and you're first going to make tiny little stars. All right, now we're gonna take the white gel pen and make some little snowballs. This is how I do my sparkle effect. You want there to be different sizes of the white gel pen, so that way it starts to look, it gives it that sparkle look. So now you're gonna take the white gel pen and do dots. So you're just laying the marker down, and you wanna go all over the entire sky. This could be a little bit time consuming, but I really love the way that it looks. And I'm going to bring just these dots going all the way down. And I am going to go over the images too. All right. And I forgot to color the little smoke coming out of the chimney, so I'm going to take my C2 and just go up along this far side and just add a little bit of a shadow. So there you have it. We have our winter scene fully colored using the winter scene stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I will see you again next time.